What is up, fight fans? This is DJC Combat, and in today's video, I want to give my predictions for the PFL and the UFC this weekend. So I'm going to talk about the Fight Night main event between Michel Pereira versus Anthony Hernandez. Originally, I wasn't going to do that, but I figured I will. But I also really want to talk about the PFL card this weekend because I'm really excited, and I usually don't cover any UFC, like non-UFC related content on this channel. I usually always only talk UFC unless there's something like interesting going on in Bellator or boxing, or PFL, but mainly it's like the UFC. But I don't know. I'm more excited for the PFL this weekend than I am UFC, in all honesty, just because I don't know. When it comes to fight nights, I feel like the UFC for the last 2 years has been kind of lacking and focusing more on quantity over quality. Like, let's just put out fight nights every single weekend in the Apex, even if it means we have to have like shitty cards or underwhelming main events. Let's just keep putting out these fight nights, right? So that's why I don't really talk fight nights that often. And even when they are in crowded arenas, I usually just don't talk about them. I mainly talk about pay-per-views for men's MMA, or I will just talk about women's MMA in general on this channel. But I'll discuss some UFC, but I really want to talk about PFL, the super fights, and I'm going to talk about that first because I'm really excited for Cris Cyborg versus Larissa Pacheco. That's a matchup I've been waiting for and wanting to see for a long time. And then Francis Ngannou is back for the first time in 2 years in MMA. Because for a while he had that like run in boxing where he fought Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua, but now he is back in the world of MMA for the first time since January 2022, where he fought Ciryl Gane. Won that by decision, then left the UFC. But now he's making his PFL debut against Renan Ferreira, the PFL heavyweight champion. I'm going to start with the women's fight, though. Cris Cyborg, Larissa Pacheco. I'm going to make things interesting with this one. I want to sound different. I'm trying to be different here. I'm actually going to go with the underdog. I'm actually going to pick against Cyborg in this fight. For as crazy as that sounds, okay? I know I should probably be going with her to win. She's got experience. She's dangerous. She's dangerous everywhere. And she's got power, And she's all scary and mean, But Cris Cyborg is only scary and mean and dangerous to these feminine women who are just more feminine than her and just weaker than her. But the last time Cris Cyborg was actually faced with someone who was just as masculine as she is, just as manly as her, she ended up being face planted on the canvas. That was by Amanda the Lioness Nunes. Someone who could take her shots, but then could also dish it right back and maybe even harder. And when Cyborg is faced with someone equal to her in power, if not more, if anything, if that Amanda Nunes fight showed me anything, that, I don't know, she can be put out. She can be knocked out by someone with real power. She can lose to someone with real strength, with high testosterone. So I'm going to go with Larissa just based off that to make it interesting. I feel like Larissa can handle Cyborg's pressure. I feel like she can take Cyborg's shots. And I feel like she can hurt Cyborg on the feet. I feel like she can meet her in the middle. I feel like she can trade with her in the pocket like no other. And I feel like she can actually hurt Cyborg. And I feel like she matches that physicality of Cyborg along with that power. So that's what makes me want to pick her to win this fight. And also, honestly, Cyborg hasn't really been looking that impressive lately in her MMA career. I mean, she didn't look that good against Julia Budd before stopping her in the 4th round. Couldn't finish Felicia Spencer, which I know Spencer's tough. No one really finishes her, but when Nunes did it, she did it way more impressively than Cyborg did. Cyborg got busted open by Felicia Spencer. It took her 5 rounds to finish Leslie Smith, which when they were in the UFC, only took her a round to get it done. So that's kind of embarrassing. When she fought Arlene Blencow, she took her to a decision. Why are you taking her to a unanimous decision? Like, these girls I'm seeing are actually having somewhat success. They're having some level of success against Cyborg, even though eventually they get overwhelmed and clobbered in the end. They're able to make something happen. And I'm just saying, if Julia Budd can have that success, if Arlene can take you to a decision, and if Leslie Smith can take you to the 5th round, and you're struggling with these girls, and then you're getting knocked out by Amanda, why can't someone as powerful and as strong and as manly as Larissa Pacheco, why can't she take you out? Why wouldn't she have a chance to beat you? So based off that, I got to go with Larissa. And plus, she's the only woman to beat Kayla Harrison in her MMA career, which is absolutely no joke. I know in the UFC, Pacheco was a reject. I think she went 0-2. But she's improved since then. She's boosted her testosterone. She's, juiced up on more performance-enhancing drugs. And she's bulked up. She's gotten bigger. Okay, so now I feel like she's hit her peak. And Cyborg's talking about leaving the sport, retiring. I feel like Larissa's she's in her prime, whereas Cyborg might just be leaving her, which that could be a bit of a reach to say, but yeah, I think Cyborg, because she hasn't looked that great in some of her fights, and Larissa's looked like an absolute monster, like she's almost like another version of Cyborg. I feel like what it's going to take to beat Cyborg is you got to be like her if you're going to beat her, like Amanda Nunes. And I think Pacheco just has it in her. So I'm going to pick her to win. But this prediction probably ain't going to hit. It's probably not going to age well. But I'm just saying, man, if there's any time for Cyborg to lose again, it's now. And if there's anyone for her to lose to, it's to none other than Larissa Pacheco. Now, moving on to Francis Ngannou versus Renan Ferreira. I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit worried for Francis Ngannou in this matchup because, look, he hasn't fought in MMA in 2 years. I know he's been active in boxing, but that's boxing. He's been focusing on his boxing game, not his MMA game. Towards the end of his UFC career, I was seeing a lot of evolution in Ngannou. And Ngannou, with improved takedown defense, improved wrestling, improved pacing, Ngannou was reaching his peak, becoming a championship level fighter. He made that mid-fight adjustment against Ciryl Gane, struggling on the feet, to then turning things around and wrestling him in the last 3 rounds, and unsuspectingly beats him by decision when no one expected Ngannou to decision Ciryl Gane when that should have been Gane's path to victory. That's impressive that he was able to do that. But he was having some negotiation issues with the UFC. He leaves. He goes to boxing. But the last time we saw someone in MMA leave for 2 years to go to boxing and then they came back, that said person came back not the same, came back washed, and ended up losing a lot of fights, went 1-3 in their next 4 fights. That was Conor McGregor. Took the Floyd fight. Took 2 years off from MMA. Was never the same and now hasn't even fought since his last loss to Dustin Poirier. He fell off a cliff. And if Conor McGregor could have stayed in MMA, he could have evolved his game. So Ngannou could come back regressed, and not just that, he's been through a lot in the last 10 months, from losing his son, the death of his son, so there's the grief of that, and getting knocked the fuck out by Anthony Joshua. That has had to have taken a bit of a hit on Ngannou's confidence. Because before that, Ngannou was coming off that decision against Tyson Fury, where he was robbed, right? It was a split decision loss. Everyone thought he won. He dropped Fury and was dancing over him, taunting him. that was a confidence boost. That was an ego boost. And if he was coming back from the Fury fight, I would more confidently pick him. But he's coming off a KO loss, and now he's taking on another really powerful fighter in MMA, in Renan Ferreira, a 6'8" giant, long reach, one-shot knockout power. If anyone right now in MMA could knock out Francis, it's Renan Ferreira. Okay, and we could see a washed Ngannou. Ngannou's no longer going to have that aura about him that he had in MMA, where it's like, he was known for his good chin, right? Never been knocked out before. He was known as the guy who could take your best hits, but when he hits you, you're done, you die. I don't know if that dynamic's going to be the same. We could see a hesitant Ngannou who's afraid to get knocked out. We could see a less durable Ngannou than what we've ever seen before. I have every reason to not pick Ngannou. But what I will say about Renan Ferreira is, okay, Renan Ferreira, I mean, what has he really done? I mean, he's a PFL fighter, and he's a good one at that. But last loss 2 years ago to Untitled. Last win was Ryan Bader. Good win, but Bader's a former Bellator champ, not former UFC champ like Ngannou. Not as dangerous as Ngannou. And of course, Ferreira's never fought anyone like Francis Ngannou before, right? Never fought a man like Francis. So there's going to be a bit of a different dynamic here. And Ferreira has 3 career losses, I believe. But yeah, his win streak isn't that big. It's not that intimidating. And you know what? Maybe him losing his son might be actual fuel for Ngannou to come back and have something to fight for. You know what I mean? Having that motivation, fighting for Kobe. So honestly, that might be worrisome for Renan Ferreira. He might be facing a pissed off Ngannou with something to fight for. And does he have nothing to lose? I don't want to say he has nothing to lose. He kind of does, because if he loses, that's his reputation down the drain. 2 losses in a row. Yeah, he needs this win. He actually has a lot to lose, and he needs redemption. So you know what? Okay, I'm going to go with Francis Ngannou to win. But it's not a guaranteed win. Like, he could very well lose this fight. He could lose to Renan Ferreira. But to be safe, to balance things out, because I'm going with the underdog Pacheco, I'm going to go with Ngannou. I'm going to say Ngannou's going to come out there. He might start a little bit hesitant against Renan Ferreira. But I think he's going to be able to use his experience as a former UFC fighter, as a former UFC champion. And I think if he's able to kind of get through that opening round against Renan Ferreira, then I do think, although this fight should probably end in the first, I'm going to say like maybe after a minute into the round or 2 minutes into the round, Ngannou's confidence might grow. He might wake up a little bit. He might be like, you know what? This guy's not so scary after all. I'm Francis Ngannou. And then he might just blitz in the pocket, get on the inside, and just chin Renan Ferreira. Because, you know, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. So I'm going to say Ngannou wins this first round knockout, and Larissa Pacheco gets the upset win against Cris Cyborg. Cristino Cyborg. But we'll see. One of these has to hit, right? I'll probably be right about Ngannou and wrong about Larissa. That's what I'm going to say. I'm not confident in Pacheco, but I'm going with her. And honestly, I'm not even that confident in Francis, but I feel like I have to pick him. It's just hard to pick against them in this matchup. But we're going to find out Saturday night, October 19th. Cannot wait. Then as for the UFC, Anthony Hernandez versus Michel Demi-Leader Pereira. This is a very interesting fight. I feel like if this was a 3-rounder, I would be more confident leaning towards Michel Pereira because he's a very good 3-round fighter. He's very explosive. He's very difficult to deal with in that early going of the fight. The first 2 rounds, you're not going to beat Michel Pereira. He's too fast. He's too strong, too explosive. His takedown defense is good. He can get takedowns of his own. He's got a lot of power, a lot of fast twitch movement. But he does kind of slow down towards the end of the fight. And Anthony Hernandez is a dog, man. He's tough. And I think he's Mexican too, right? Anthony Hernandez, Anthony Fluffy is a Mexican guy. He's got that Mexican blood, Mexican fighting spirit in him. So I don't know, man. He might be able to weather the early storm. He just has that style where he just kind of breaks people in the octagon. He just breaks his opponents, and he's got very, very good grappling as well. 5-fight win streak. Hasn't lost since getting stalked by Kevin Holland. Knees to the body. But Michel Pereira's been looking so good too. Like, he's on like I think he's on an 8-fight win streak, man. He hasn't lost since 2020, which was a DQ to Diego Sanchez, where he was looking good in that fight before getting disqualified. Since then, he stopped Zelim Amadov by rear naked choke, beat Chaos Williams, which I remember I picked Chaos Williams to win that fight. I thought Chaos Williams was going to stop him. He beat him. It was a somewhat close fight, but I think it came down to those first 2 rounds, which favored Michel Pereira. Michel decision Nico Price, but he lost the last round. So that's what kind of gives me doubts with him beating Hernandez. Andre Fialho beats him by decision, starts fading in the 3rd round. I did not watch the Santiago Ponzinibbio fight, so I have no memory of what happened. I have no recollection of what happened in like the 3rd round, because that day there was like a power outage going on in Canada where I was at. So I had no connection, couldn't watch the fight. I just heard about it, but it was a split decision. But is there much shame in going to a split against Santiago? Because, I mean, he did take Jeff Neal to a split decision. He is kind of competitive against these younger guys, so... But Santiago's wash is a little bit concerning. Beat Andre Petrovsky by TKO in the 1st round. Submitted Michael Alexeychuk, and then knocked out Ihor Pereira. Yeah, it's a hard fight to predict, because I could see a world where if Anthony Hernandez gets through the first 2 rounds, I think he's going to win the fight. And if this fight took place at Noche UFC, where it was originally booked in a 3-round setting, I think Michel wins this fight all the way by decision, if not an early finish. But it's 5 rounds. But I don't know. Whenever I have one against Michel, he's won. But Hernandez is tough. I mean, how many times has this guy been finished before? Like, he's okay. He's been subbed and he's been knocked out. All right, you know what? I'm just going to go with Michel Pereira to win, but I will not be shocked if Hernandez wins. My fight night picks are pretty terrible, especially when it's picks I'm not that invested in. I do the worst at. So Hernandez will probably end up winning, but Michel Pereira is too dangerous in that early going. I feel like he can exploit the weakness in Hernandez when it comes to body shots. He might be able to hurt him to the body early. I don't know. I feel like Michel, he's got a chance to win by knockout or even a submission. So I'm going to say Michel Pereira is going to be able to win by an early finish. But if not, maybe he properly paces himself in this fight. And maybe he can get the first 3 rounds and coast in the last 2 to win a decision. But I won't be surprised if Hernandez wins. But yeah, my picks are going to be Pereira, Ngannou, and Pacheco. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. I'm 90 subs away from 1,000 subs again on this new channel. So help a brother out. Keep them subs going. Turn on the notification bell. Like the video. Let me know your picks in the comment section down below. And yeah, peace out.